Hi everybody! Today I have a fun tutorial for you just in time for Halloween. This is the photo that we are going to create today. It's supposed to be kind of like an apparition, like a vintage type old looking photo. It's just for fun, and today I'm going to show you how to do it. It requires no actions. It's all done by hand. The only thing that you will need is a couple of photos. The first thing you're going to need is a empty background here. This actually just had my son in it, and I kind of cloned him out, and you can tell that my cloning, I did not really take that much time or put that much effort into cloning, only because we're going to put my son back into the image and you're not even going to be able to see the background, so it wasn't really worth taking the time. So you're also going to need a subject, and here I just have my son with a sheet over his head. And then you also need a sky overlay. Now, sky overlays, you can buy them or you can download them for free, like on DeviantArt, and there's a lot of people who just have them as free downloads. So this I think I got in a set that I purchased like a long time ago, a few years ago. I don't really use sky overlays like ever, I don't believe, except for artistic purposes, which is what I'm going to show you today. But you do need a sky that has a nice blue, dark blue background and very fluffy white clouds. You don't want anything like a sunset or anything with color in it or anything like that, and I'll show you why a little bit later. So what we're going to start with first is the picture of our subject. Now we want to move him over to our empty background. So you want to take your little magic wand here. Now, one of the main reasons I stuck him in a white sheet is because he's going to be very easy to select, and a lot easier than if you had little pieces and parts sticking out everywhere. As you can see, he's pretty much all selected right there. So simple, no problem. So you need to select your subject, okay? Then you want to go back up here to your layers. New layer. Layer via copy. Click that there. So now you've got a copy of him over here. And what we're going to do, there are several ways that you can get him over onto our background, but this is how I like to do it. This is how I kind of transfer things from photo to photo. If you just pull your photo down, it's going to bring your image over, and we don't want that as our background. We want our empty background here. And then you want to take him over here, just drag your layer on top of your empty background, and there he is. So now we can lower the original picture of him. We don't need that anymore. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put him like where? Like right about here maybe. I don't know, where do you think? Right about there sounds good. Now the first thing I'm going to do before I even continue with the rest of this is get rid of these little weeds and stuff that you see kind of sticking out in front of his sheet. We don't want those. We're just going to clone those out really quickly. It's not really... If you know how to use the clone tool, this is and using the clone tool is pretty simple. Ooh, except for that we got to try to keep it as white as possible since this is... What the heck? What's going on? We're not copying. There we go. That's better. Okay, so now that we got rid of that, I'm not really too concerned about this little thing over here. I don't think it's going to be all that noticeable. I think trying to fix it might do more damage. So that's really all we want right there. So I'm going to go ahead and label this. We'll just label it Austin, so that way I know it's my main subject right here. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this layer. We are going to... I'm going to drag it down here because I want this layer, the copy, to be behind the main picture here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go up here to Filter, Blur, and we want Motion Blur. So much fun. Now, I'm trying to we want it to be quite... You can see it's kind of making like a little glow around him here, which is what we want. And I think I want it out like all the way as far as this can go, because I want to leave like a good glow around him. So the first one we're going to do, we're going to pull this all the way out. We want the distance here I have mine set at what? 998. So however far it goes, that's how far we're going to set it. And just click OK. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make another copy. Go back up here to your main subject and make another copy. And pull this 2 down below your main subject. You want this below your main subject again because we want it to be behind him. So then we're going to go up here, back up to blur, back down to motion blur, and we don't want it quite as wide. We want it about, let's try it about, like what? Probably almost like half the distance, kind of, is I think where we want it. Try it at like, let's try it at like 500 and see. I think that's pretty good. We're going to leave it like that. Like 500 is pretty good. So now so far we've got 2 layers here of our subject, and now we're going to go back up here to our main subject. We're going to make yet another copy. Now this copy we want to keep above our subject because we want this one to be in front of him. Now let's do this first. We're going to go back up to filter, back up to blur, and yes, you guessed it, motion blur. And this time we are going to turn it down. It's kind of hard to judge this without fixing our center subject so much, because we're going to turn the opacity of this down, so it's kind of hard to tell. You know, before we do that, let's go back down here to our main subject here, and we're going to drop this down to like, let's try like 38%. The reason it's not showing is because we still have this on top. So this, if you turn this layer off, then you'll see that your main subject here, now he's more opaque and he looks a little bit more like an apparition. So then if you go back up here and you turn this back on, now we can go back up to filter, blur, motion blur, and now we can kind of mess around with it a little bit and get a better idea of what. I kind of think we should blow him out all the way again. So if we pull this all the way back out to 998 here, save that. I think we need to drop this a little bit. Like, let's try like 50% or maybe even lower. Try like 40%. No, 30%. Maybe that looks a lot better. So far there is our ghost. And you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 copies. Now if you want to do more copies, you know, if you want to do more blur or whatever, you know, feel free, play around with it, do whatever. It's up to you. This is how I like it, but you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's up to you. You can add more or you can add less, or you can make him even more opaque, or you can, you know, take it back up to 100% and make him, you know, solid. I mean, that's up to you. But I think it just looks better, more opaque. It looks more realistic, and it looks kind of silly now because it's all in color. And but we're gonna fix that. That's gonna be our next step. So after you get your ghost the way that you want him to look, all we're gonna do is turn the image into a black and white image. So I just used a gradient. That's just the easiest way for me. And when I'm just playing around, you know, with different black and whites, I usually set it to a black and white gradient first before I play around with any of the other colors. And I just want a standard black and white. So this is how I like it, and this is how I'm going to leave it. So now that we've got this set to, we are just going to label this our black and white layer. And then next we are going to add the fog, and this is where our cloud overlay comes in. Now I am going to show you how to make fog out of a sky overlay. I know you're totally confused, but it's so easy and you can do so many things with it. So like, why the heck not, right? So as long as you've got a sky that's got, you know, that's pretty dark and it's got really white clouds, you just have to have this contrast here. You have to have the blue skies and the white clouds. Now I'm going to show you how to turn it into fog. So simple. First thing you're going to do is turn it black and white. So just hit the gradient bar. That's what I do. But then you want to make it way more, you want to make the sky and the clouds stand apart even more. You basically want to turn all of the sky into black. So hit your levels here and just kind of drag the slider over until you get it pretty much black. That's what you want right there. You want it black. I don't think we really need to play with the clouds. I think that they're pretty white already, but you certainly can if that's what you want to do. So that's all you have to do so far. This, I mean, what does this look like? This looks like smoke, right? So far there's step one, turning it into a black and white, and you want to flatten these layers here, and then we are going to pull down our overlay. Just pull it down, and then pull it and lay it across of our image. Now we can get rid of this. Now we got to make this, we've got to make this kind of fit the photo so we can put it where we want it. So if you hit Control-Alt-T, it's going to give you a shortcut to transform your image the way you want it. And we just want to pull this down here. And for some reason, every time I do this, it always gives me this extra layer, and I don't know why. I'll have to adjust it here in a second, but we want this to kind of be like on the ground mostly. We're going to set it right here for right now. And if we just get rid of this, I don't know why it always does that, and I can't figure out how to fix it any other way. So this right now is where I want my fog. Obviously, it's covering him up, and we need to get rid of the black part. So here's a little trick in Photoshop. So simple. If you set your layer to screen, the black will vanish, and all you're left with is the white fog here. Of course, we need to do some touching up. We want to erase it off of him, and we probably should lower the opacity a little bit. Well, let's leave it on high. Let's leave it on high for right now, and just get yourself a layer mask. Go on in here and erase it off of your ghost, because we don't want it to cover up our ghost. Got to be careful because we don't want to leave any halos, which is what's happening now. So we'll have to go back and kind of just fill that back in a little bit right there. Now, once you do the next step, this might not be so noticeable. So now the way you make this look more believable, because right now it just looks like clouds kind of floating on the ground, right? So make sure that your overlay here is selected, and go up here to filter, up to blur. We want to go to Gaussian blur, and we're just going to blur this out so it looks more realistic. Now it's looking a lot more like fog, right? Just kind of play around with it and adjust it to wherever you want it. Definitely want to make it pretty strong, because you know, fog is fog. It's not, it's very opaque. So I kind of liked it like around 50, so we're just going to leave it like that. And as you can see, it kind of blends that out so you don't really see it too much. Now that you have it, you know, blurred out, you can go back and adjust the opacity if you want to make it stronger or lighter or whatever. I think I'm just gonna leave it like right about like there. It's pretty good. So we're just going to layer this fog. All right, so now the next step, we're going to go in and darken this a little bit, because as you can see, my sun and the fog kind of just blend into the background, and we don't want that. So we're just going to go in and play with our levels a little bit until we get this to where he kind of stands out a little bit more, and the background's a little bit darker. Just trying to see here. I think that I like it like this. I think that's pretty good. So I'm just gonna leave this dark. And then the last step that you can do or not do, it's completely optional, is you can add a vignette if you want to. I add vignettes by doing the gradient. And just take a gradient here and radial. If you don't know how to use a gradient, then you should definitely learn, because they are so handy. And I don't even know if I'm going to keep this vignette, to be honest. I'm just going to, I want it way lower down. I really just want it on the corners. So if I'm going to take my layer mask and I'm going to actually erase it off of, I'm going to make this a lot bigger here. And oh, there goes my phone. And I'm going to take this off of everything here and just kind of leave it, you know, like up in the corners really is where I want it. So the corners kind of just look kind of spooky, I guess you want to call it. So yeah, the vignette doesn't look too bad, I guess. I still think I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit more. Okay, and there you have it. And this is your your ghosts. Now I showed this to my son and he thought it was totally cool. So take your kids out back and just play around, like throw a sheet over them or whatever, because as you can tell, you know, they just kind of look ghostly. It's just for fun, you know, like it's not made to be judged. I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, perfect or whatever. It's just for fun. So play around with it though, you know. You can definitely make your apparition, you know, like I said, more opaque or more solid, or you can add even more of the blur to it if you wanted to. Like looking at this now, I think I kind of want to make him a little bit more opaque. Like I'm kind of like, oh, that's too opaque, I think. Like maybe like right, let's try like 30. I know that was dumb because it was like 1% more, but it's an even number and I like even numbers, so we're going to stick to 30. So as you can see, if you take him out, you can kind of see just the blur of him. You bring him back into it, and then it kind of fills in where you can see his mouth and his eyes and whatnot kind of blurred around a little bit. Like I said, totally, you know, play with it and just experiment, and it's just for fun, and enjoy it. And I hope you have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you for the next tutorial. Bye.